It Works Both Ways. A short story by Richard D. Narrated by Stephen Bungay. She grabbed my attention. She would have grabbed anyone's, striding confidently down the road towards me that summer's day. With her coat, the long dress, and the black boots, she was out of place in the warmth of the sun. Her hair was short and dark brown, framing sharp features, not conventionally beautiful, but striking and vital. She stood out. It's a trick that some people have, the effortless style and confidence that I so envy. And I got a wink as she passed me, along with a perfume that made me think of a walk by the sea. I turned, but she'd gone, into a shop or around the corner. I'm Dave, by the way. I'm 25, single and available. And what I'm going to tell you, well, you might think that I'm crazy, but then again, you may just believe me. I couldn't get her out of my mind. There was something more than just the sight or the smell of her. Being a bit of a loner and socially awkward, I'd never really got involved with people. The whole thing seemed so complicated to me. I didn't understand the rules and usually managed to say the wrong thing, and that made it worse. That's why I drove lorries. I could avoid most of my phobias and live in my bubble. But work was quiet, and I had a few days to myself. Like it or not, I had to face the world sometimes. Maybe I could find the courage to speak to her, if I ever saw her again. I don't know why. Maybe it was because of the perfume. The next afternoon I ended up walking along the cliff path. It was a perfect day. A light breeze, blue sky, and a faint buzz from the bees around the flowering blackberries. The sun shone on a flat sea with the odd sail from a yacht drifting on the tide. People walked dogs and children ran. A normal day. I heard a noise. There was a rustling deep in the undergrowth. The sort of noise that a dog makes when it's chasing after rabbits. Looking around for the source, I saw movement in a patch of bracken. Curiosity got the better of me, and I waded into the waist-high foliage, heading towards the part that was waving. It was like a local breeze had taken hold. As I got within 6 feet, it stopped. There was nothing there. Whatever animal had caused the motion had gone, melted away into the deep brush. A splash of color caught my eye. A purple case, about the size of a book, lay on the ground. I picked it up. It was warm and felt like fine leather, polished and well used. The corners of the case were scuffed. I turned it over in my hands. It was closed, but had no visible lock. The seam just wouldn't open, no matter how hard I tugged. I carried it home, and over a cup of tea I examined it. There were no marks on the case to identify an owner, and again, I couldn't open it. I even tried to push a knife blade between the two halves of the seam, but to no avail. Frustrated at my inability to open it, I tossed it into an armchair. Next day it rained, and I got on with other things. The case was where I'd left it, and I had no idea what to do with it. So I did nothing. Perhaps I would see the owner on my walk, or perhaps it was broken and unwanted, thrown away. Maybe I should just put it back where I had found it and forget about it. In the end, it was nearly a week before I walked that way again, and when I did, I forgot to take the thing with me. She was there, in her long black coat, hunting through the bracken, swishing a long stick around as she flattened the leaves. "Hello," I shouted. "Are you looking for something?" She turned to me and smiled, and I realized that although I had remembered her just about perfectly, I'd forgotten the way her face was sharp and alive, how her short hair and delicate eyebrows framed bright gray eyes and a generous mouth. She was as tall as me and moved quickly, like a cautious gazelle peering all around. But today it wasn't happiness, but worry on her face. "I've lost my recorder," she announced. "If I don't find it, I'm in trouble. I've sneaked back for it, but if I don't find it, I'm finished. It'll be the end of my career." She seemed distraught at the prospect. "Was it in a purple case?" I asked her. She nodded, the relief obvious in her smile. "Oh, do say you've got it. Where is it?" "It's broken," I said, and the smile vanished. "But it can't be. It's built to withstand far more than my journey." She stopped. "I mean, it can stand up to being dropped quite a distance. Besides, how could you know if it works or not?" "It's broken. I can't open the case," I said. She looked at me as if I was crazy. "Of course you can't open it. How could you? It's not yours. Where is it?" "At my house." "Come on, then." She grabbed my arm, her grip strong and decisive. "Take me there. I need it." I pulled away. "Hang on a minute." I was intrigued. The intensity of her desire seemed more than the object could be worth. And how had she lost it there, in the middle of a patch of bracken? Perhaps I could get some answers before I handed it over. "Before we go anywhere, who are you and what were you doing in the bracken to lose it?" There were about 1,000 more questions. None of what she was saying made sense. "I'm Jane. I can't tell you anything else," she replied. "Please, just take me to it. I've done too much already, taken risks. The line may become unstable if I say much more." Now I was interested, and it looked like I had the upper hand. After all, I knew where this thing was, and she was clearly agitated about its return. Perhaps that explained her rambling. "What are you talking about, the line? What line?" She took a deep breath. "Okay, I'll tell you, but not here. Take me to your house and give me the recorder. I'll tell you everything." We almost ran, and I didn't take her. It was more like she took me. She seemed to know where she was going. She sat on my sofa. She had asked to use the bathroom as soon as we had arrived. Fortunately, I had cleaned the place up a little. She sipped the tea I'd made, no milk, holding her hands around the cup like she was cold. "This is nice," she said. "I can't afford to drink tea much." "What?" I said. "Everyone has tea. It's not expensive. We even grow it in Cornwall, just down the road." She ignored my comment. "Where's my recorder?" I passed it to her, and she grabbed it. When our fingers touched, there was a spark, or at least that's what I felt. Something between us, a connection that I didn't understand. She hadn't noticed in her excitement. As she touched the seam of the case, it fell open. It was a standard-looking laptop computer with a keyboard. She pressed various keys and let out a sigh. "It's all okay," she said. "There's no damage. But now I have it, I have to go." "You told me you would explain." I stood and went to block the way to the door. She wasn't going anywhere until I got some answers. She pressed more buttons. "I lied. I'm sorry." She turned away from me and ran into the bathroom. The lock clicked. "What's going on?" I shouted. There was no reply. I rattled the handle as I heard the window open. In desperation, I stood back and charged at the door, bursting into the bathroom with the crash of a splintered frame. She was gone. I went to the window and looked out. There was no sign of her. Just a small patch of material from her coat hooked on the catch was all that was left. It was a good 10 feet to the ground. I should have been able to see her running away, but the street was empty. I went back to the lounge and sat where she had, not really understanding what had happened. I'd felt something, attraction, or whatever, for the first time, and wanted more. I tried to remember all the things she had said. They made no sense to me. All that talk about lines and risks. And I had never heard of a laptop that only opened for one person. I Googled for hours. Nothing I found made any sense. That sort of thing didn't exist. For the next few days, I walked to the spot where I had found her and just stood there, trying to work it out. Things she had said went round in my head. What had she meant, the line? And why had she said the tea was too expensive? And what had I felt when we touched? I couldn't sleep and eventually saw my doctor. I didn't tell him much, just that I couldn't sleep. He gave me pills and told me that I would get over it. After a while, I realized that she wasn't coming back. I hadn't told anyone. It all sounded so weird, and besides, there was no evidence. I had to get over it. I went back to work, driving all over the country, living in my cab, using the concentration of the job to purge the thoughts from my head. It didn't work. Then, one night, 3 weeks later, when the memory had receded and gone to that place where it's almost unreal, there was a sound from the hallway. I looked up, and she was there.
"What are you doing? How did you get in?"
She smiled again. This time she had no coat, just a white blouse and black trousers tucked into long boots. She carried a large bag slung over her shoulder. The hair was longer, a lot longer, and hung around her shoulders.
"I had to come back and explain," she said. "It might be dangerous, but I've thought about it and can't see how it can do any harm. And to be honest, I don't care anymore. I know you've looked online, but you haven't actually told anyone, have you?"
I shook my head.
"Who would I tell? What would I say? Anyway, I would just sound crazy. Your secret, whatever it is, it's safe with me." "Can I have some tea?" she asked. "It tasted so good, and I've missed it so much." "As long as you don't disappear while I make it." "Not this time," she replied. "I'm here to finish what I started."
I made the tea, and again she held the cup in both hands, sipping and savoring every drop.
"First, you must promise to keep what I'm going to tell you between us. No one else must know."
She looked so serious and earnest, but at that moment I wondered about her sanity. She had sought me out, run from me, and come back. Perhaps she was as crazy as her actions had made me feel.
"All right, then,"
I agreed, trying to humor her.
"Just as long as you don't try and tell me that you're some sort of time traveler or anything daft like that."
She looked shocked.
"That changes things. How did you work it out?"
This wasn't going well. I'd meant it as a joke, and she had taken it seriously.
"Work it out?"
I said, trying not to laugh.
"Yes, that I'm a time traveler. Was it the recorder? I mean, the laptop? Or my clothes? I tried to be careful, but it's so difficult. I got the season wrong the first time. We don't have much choice."
"Listen, you can't travel in time. No one can." If she was crazy, I didn't want to feed her delusion. Who knows what she might do?
"There's no point in messing about."
She took a deep breath, as if she had reached a decision.
"I've come back to kill you."
She said it in such a matter-of-fact sort of way. Because of that, it took a while to realize what she was saying. Then, as it hit me,
"What do you mean?"
I almost shouted.
"Kill me. What can I possibly have done to you? I don't owe money. I've got nothing worth much. But now I've met you, I can't. I should have done it the last time I was here, 9 months ago, and the time before that when I lost my recorder. That was only a couple of weeks, not 9 months ago. For you it was."
She touched her hair.
"For me, it was 9 months.
That made no sense.
"What are you talking about? Look, you seem rational most of the time, but I think you may have some sort of medical problem. You turn up, and then you disappear. And you seem to be following me, but I don't understand what's going on. Now you say you're a time traveler. What are you really, and why on earth would you want to kill me?" "Because it has to stop."
She was close to tears.
"You haven't done anything except be who you are, and I'm who I am. It's all very unfortunate, very unfair."
She swallowed heavily and looked at the carpet. It was as if she didn't want to look at me while she said the rest. It all came out in a rush.
"You're a lovely man. You're innocent. And that just makes it harder."
This was making less and less sense to me.
"How can you say that? We've never met. I think you'd better start from the beginning."
She sipped her tea.
"Well, you were right. I am a time traveler. It was all my work. I invented it, and it's all my fault."
"Okay." I decided to humor her. I didn't feel threatened. She couldn't kill me, could she? She didn't seem that resolute. Surely I could talk her out of it.
"If you're a time traveler, when are you from?" "About 50 years from now, give or take a few months," she said,
in a matter-of-fact way.
"I solved the problem 5 years ago, and here I am."
"And why do you want to kill me?"
"Because I wish I hadn't done it."
That threw me.
"Why would you wish that? Surely it's a brilliant achievement, and in 50 years or whenever I might not be alive, so how can I have anything to do with it?"
She gave me a pitying look, and I realized that she was crying.
I didn't know what to do. The old social phobia kicked back in, and I just sat there, squirming. In the end, I got up and made more tea. When I brought it in, she had stopped crying, but now she sniffed and wiped her face with her sleeve. "You can't realize," she said, "just what I created. I didn't at the start. It sort of sneaked up on us." "How do you mean?" "Well, it should have been wonderful. I was stupid. I went to the government and told them. They took over, pushed me out and used it to see the future. Now they control everything. They can see what will happen. They experiment, changing the present to make the future they want. It keeps them in power." I tried to imagine it, and I could see what she meant. I could see how knowledge like that could be used for control of a population. "We've become a stagnant dictatorship," she went on, "and anyone who tries to change it, well, they can't. We're all watched and life is just awful." "So why come into the past?" "The government isn't interested in the past. They just want to know about the future, and there are too many rules in the past, too many variables to worry about. They won't allow travel into the past because it frightens them. But because I'm still trusted, I sneak away and do it."
I smiled.
"That's very sensible. I might not be a genius, but I do understand the idea of time travel. I know that you can't take anything back and that you mustn't change anything."
She waved the laptop in its purple case.
"That's why I had to get this back before anyone found it and realized it was impossible for it to exist now." "What was it doing, lying there in the bracken?" "It was with me. I was ready to shoot you, but the machine pulled me back. I left it behind." "So you're here again, and what makes you think you can kill me this time?"
She gave me the pitying look again.
"Well, because I have to stop it. I'm the only one who can. I've had 9 months since I chickened out and ran from your bathroom. Things in my time have gotten worse. I wish I had never invented it, and I can only see one way out."
I suddenly realized what she meant.
"You mean go back and stop yourself inventing time travel?"
She nodded.
"But I couldn't do it."
"Here it comes," I thought.
"I wanted to go back to before any of this," she said. "I thought the best way to stop it happening was to kill my grandfather before he and my grandmother, well, you know."
"Make your parent," I suggested.
"That's right."
She seemed embarrassed, raising the subject with me.
"You're single, aren't you?" "Yes, I am, and no children yet, that I know of."
I laughed, trying to break the tension that was developing as her argument came to its conclusion. She dropped the bomb.
"Well, very soon you're going to meet someone. She told me when I was little that you saved her from an accident, and you fell in love."
She paused, and I realized.
"You mean that I'm—"
She nodded.
"Hello, Granddad."
I wanted to hug her, to hold her and tell her that it was all right, but the circumstances made it awkward. I had to be rational.
"So if you kill me,"
I said,
"you couldn't exist. You wouldn't invent time travel." "That's right. I'm glad you understand. I'm so sorry, but I can't face a future that I know I've created. I remember you so well. When you were older and I was young, you were so good to me. That's why I couldn't do it last time."
Suddenly, it was my future that looked bleak.
"But," I said, "that won't work. If I didn't exist, then you wouldn't be able to come back here and kill me. So you can't."
She rummaged in her bag and pulled out a pistol. It looked huge in her dainty hands and shook as she gripped it.
"I know all that,"
she said, with a resigned sigh.
"That's why it's been 9 months. I've spent it agonizing about whether I can, about what will happen. We'll see who's right, but if I don't try to change things, then humanity is in trouble."
I just looked at her. I'd followed her logic and thought it was flawed. As far as I could understand it, I was safe. But she was right. There was only one way to be sure. She sobbed and a tear ran down her face.
"You don't know what it's like,"
she said.
"You'd expect the future to be better than now. Once we can travel in time, it gets worse. A lot worse. No one cares anymore. The future is known, and to be honest, there's no point in it. We can see what's going to happen, and apathy has set in. We've let a half-dozen people have all the power, and because of the technology they have, they know if anyone is plotting against them, and they see the changes and stop them."
I moved towards her and she lifted the gun.
"Don't,"
she said.
"One of us is right. and we'll find out in a moment."
I had to keep her talking until I could try and get the gun.
"But doesn't that knowledge change the future? Surely apathy creates a different future." "Yes, and it's so unattractive that no one wants it."
"We all want change, except for those at the top."
"And because they're in love with the power and don't want to lose it, they won't allow us to strive to change the future, because they can control a docile population so much better."
I understood that in a way it would be better to kill me, to stop me ultimately creating a future that was so far removed from the utopia that we all hoped for.
"But haven't you thought of something else?"
I asked.
"What else might result from my demise? What else might I do that killing me would stop? You might have a brother who cures cancer." "I haven't."
She spat out the words.
"My brother,"
she said with heavy irony.
"My wonderful brother, who adored his grandfather. He's the leader of the people I told you about. I can remember the happy times we had with you and Gran, of our walks on the cliffs, the beach, ice cream, fish and chips. We don't have anything like that now. We don't even have a cheap cup of tea. He trusts me a little because I'm his sister, but he's become a monster. Nobody can get close to him, close enough to finish him off. And it's all my fault."
She pointed the gun at me and pulled the trigger. A pistol going off in a small room sounds like nothing else, except maybe a power cord from a rock band 2 feet away. There are waves of sound that echo after the initial blast. I felt the hot breath of the bullet as it passed my face. My eardrums hurt and my vision blurred. Goodness knows what the neighbors must have thought. There was a crash as a large chunk of plaster fell to the floor, and dust swirled around the room. Jane was shaking. She let the pistol drop to her side.
"I can't do it. I just can't. It's too much. It's all useless," she said,
her voice faint through the ringing in my ears.
"They were right, and there really is no hope for our future."
I breathed a sigh of relief. It looked like you couldn't kill your grandfather. Something would always stop you. The time machine itself, or just plain human emotion. It wasn't possible.
"Stay here, then,"
I suggested. It felt like I was talking through cotton wool.
"Live out your life here. We can go to the authorities and warn them, change the future from now." "Who'd believe me?"
"It doesn't matter who believes you," I said. "All you need to do is make a few ripples. You just need to convince enough people that there could be a problem. It will be enough to alter the future. You will know enough history. To us, it's our future, but to you, it's history. To convince them of that, you have to be genuine. And don't take a job inventing things." For a moment, I thought that I'd sold her the idea.
"But you still don't understand," she said. "I told you that I got pulled back by the machine. I thought it was my fault, but it's the government. They can pull you back remotely. You can't leave anything behind. Remember? As soon as they realize where I am, that I'm not doing what they want, they'll pull me back. There's an implant in me. The machine attracts it back to my time. Anyhow, I couldn't live here, knowing what's coming. It's no different to living then. I still know what's coming. It'll just take longer for me to get to it. And killing your grandfather must work both ways."
She paused.
"If you know what I mean."
She raised the gun again. There was another shot, and I saw her fall to the floor. A red stain spreading on her blouse. "Leave nothing behind," she had said. Even if it was dead. The implant must have been triggered by her death, and the machine called her body back. By the time the police arrived, I had moved the bookcase across the room to hide the damage to the wall. There was no evidence of anything. No gun and no body, and after a couple of hours they left. Still suspicious, but unable to progress. I thought about her last words. It must work both ways. I wondered about the things I would never have. The happy times with a family in the future that I had to look forward to. But as I'd never had them, I couldn't really miss them. At about 3 a.m, just before the pills won and I slept, I finally understood.
Next day I booked myself in to see the doctor. He was going to be shocked that I, a 25-year-old single man, would want a vasectomy. I would have to think up a good reason for him. I had the feeling that saving humanity from itself would sound too weird, but as Jane had reasoned, if I didn't become a parent, then she couldn't invent a time machine.
I hope that you have enjoyed this audiobook short story. As an independently published author, I have no huge marketing machine, no bottomless budget. I rely on readers and listeners to help me gain attention for my work. Next to the readers who love my work, reviews, either by word of mouth or online, remain one of my most important assets. Talking about my books, telling your friends and family, and reviews on websites help bring them to the attention of other readers. If you've enjoyed reading or listening to this book, please consider leaving a review. Even if it's only a few words, it will be appreciated and might help someone else discover their next great read. Find out more about me and my worlds at richarddsci-fi.co.uk, where you can see details of my other novels and short story collections. Thank you very much. Richard D.